Hello, welcome to the Coachable Players podcast. This podcast is built on the belief that the most successful athletes, employees, and business leaders share a trait. They are coachable. This podcast explores how the lessons of being open to feedback, growing under pressure, and leading with humility extend far beyond the playing field. With these episodes, we want to inspire listeners to embrace coachability as a lifelong skill. So welcome today to another episode, and I am excited. We have an executive coach with us. That sounds so cool, so awesome. Brent Darnell. Brent, I've known you for, it was pre-COVID when we met, so at least 5 years. We met at
Yeah, I think you're right.
yeah, you were a keynote speaker up at Penn State, I believe. Does that sound right?
Yeah,
Penn State? Yeah.
yeah, it does. I do a lot of speaking and teaching at Penn State, so that was probably it, or maybe a COA thing. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know
that's what
what
it
it was.
was. Koa.
It was yeah, COA PA with
Yeah.
John Bechtel.
John
Yeah,
Bechtel, you nailed it. Yep, that's it. And before we talk about the episode, knowing that you were coming on today, I kept thinking. I just remember back at that Penn State speaking event that you had. You did some sort of exercise to get the tables talking amongst each other, and I just remember liking it so much, but I can't remember what it was. And you probably done so many, you probably don't remember either. But it was so cool how you got everyone engaged and everyone talking. That's
yeah. I mean that it's so interesting that the last 5 years that's been my whole sort of at least the underlying theme of everything I do for teaching or speaking or coaching is about human connection. How do we connect better as human beings?
yeah.
So I've got lots of tools and tricks and tips and exercises and all kinds of ways that we connect with each other. And I'm speaking at the Mental Health and Wellbeing Conference out in Portland. I'm doing a pre-conference session on human connection.
There you go.
And Chris Lollamy said he's already signed up. So it's
Oh,
good to have.
awesome.
It'll be good to have Chris in the audience there. So yeah, so that I mean that's a vital piece of this of getting people connected.
It is.
And we don't. It's not our best thing either in this industry. I think for many
Yeah.
of us anyway.
Construction's tough. It is tough with the human connection. But hats off to you. I walked away with 9 new friends. There was 10 people at our table, and you got us connected.
Nice,
You got us
awesome.
but yeah, I'm excited about this episode. We're gonna talk about coachability traits. We're gonna talk some culture, all that fun stuff that you love and you're so good at speaking at and
Hmm.
and and teaching about and having people connect. But before we jump in, how about a
It's
little
my
background on
pleasure to
yourself?
be here.
Yeah, I'm excited. Let's get
Oh,
fired up.
me?
All right. Yeah, about
Um,
yourself. Who's Brett
all right.
Darnell?
Yeah. So, first of all, I grew up in the construction business. My dad was a carpenter. His dad was a carpenter and painter. My dad started as a carpenter after World War II. He couldn't find a job that he liked and worked his way up through the field and then got into management. And so I grew up in the business, worked in it from the time I was old enough to work. And I'm a mechanical engineer by education, Georgia Tech graduate, and started mostly as an MEP coordinator and worked in the business for about 20 years, except for there was a 3 year stint where I became a full time actor and writer for a while and did
Awesome.
a lot of theater, did some improv, did some stand up comedy, did some low budget, horrible movies you never would have seen, and I had a small role on the old TV show In the Heat of the Night. I
Nice.
played a redneck auto mechanic drug dealer on In the Heat of the Night. Um, if you think construction is tough,
Yeah.
acting's a lot tougher. It's a tough gig. So I couldn't make a living as an actor. Went back to construction engineering, and then about 2000 or so, I started doing this leadership development training. And so I've been had my own business for about 25 years now, teaching emotional intelligence and all those critical people skills to the industry with an emphasis on performance, highest levels of mental, physical, and emotional performance. So we talk a lot about stress and nutrition and sleep and exercise and human connection and how that plays into performance and longevity. So that's a big thrust of what I do now. I do a lot of work with mental health and well-being, a lot of work with workforce development, diversity, equity, inclusion, stuff like that. All of that is centered around how we connect as humans.
Awesome. Very cool.
So that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. I totally forgot about the acting and I know you brought that up before. I'm glad you reminded me. That's awesome. If you got any YouTube clips floating around out there, feel free to send them my
Yeah,
way.
I got an actor's reel, and yeah, I think it's on YouTube. If you just put Brent Darnell acting reel or acting, I'm sure it'll
Okay.
pop up.
I'll check it out.
If
All
people
right.
want to see some of my stuff.
Yeah. So you talk a lot about culture too, and
Mhm.
why don't we start there? And
Sure.
when company leaders and when people say we need to fix our culture, what exactly are they talking about? What are they getting at?
Wow.
Yeah,
That's a loaded question
that
because
is.
I don't think they know.
Yeah, I
They
know.
just know that what they're doing is not working, and so they're saying we have to fix it. But boy, that's a could be so many things. It's such a complex sequence of behaviors and events and how you treat people and all the way down to like hiring practices and
Yeah,
benefits. And I mean, it's so many things. But I'd say if you're struggling and you want to start someplace and you don't really know where to start, it's all about that human connection stuff and
yeah,
respect for other people. That's got to be the place to begin. And that takes things like, empathy. What we teach, it's a lot of emotional intelligence. It's empathy and self-awareness and truly being authentic and being able to show up as your best self and who you really are and not having to put a mask on and feeling like you belong. There's something that we use a lot of with this culture piece, and it's called self-determination theory. Have you heard of this theory?
no, no.
It's a really cool, it's well researched. I think they're coming up on like 50 years of research behind it, and it seems to be accelerating. But these guys, Ryan and DC, do a lot of academic research on basically they started with what motivates people, and so they started this research project, and it just morphed into this self-determination theory. And they discovered that there's three main human motivators. There's autonomy, or like self, where you decide what you do, and you're sort of intrinsically motivated. There's mastery, which means you want to learn something. Everybody wants to learn something and be better at something and be good at something. That's the second piece of self determination theory. And the last piece is called relatedness or belonging, and feeling like you're belonging to a group, to a project team, to a company. And if you have all of those things in place and ways to cultivate those three things, you're going to create a great culture. But a lot of times we have gaps in those things. Like there isn't a feeling of belonging or relatedness, or you don't give people the opportunity to learn and to grow and to be great at something, or you don't let them, tap into intrinsic motivation. You try to use extrinsic motivators like money or,
Mm.
bonuses and things like that. And what they find over and over and over is those extrinsic motivators are okay short term, but long term they don't motivate people, and people will get dissatisfied and leave. So I think we can pay attention to self-determination theory because it's proven over and over and over to work, and start applying those concepts to everything we do as companies on projects, to create those cultures of where everybody feels like they're they really do fit into that bigger picture and they love showing up to work every day.
What? Speaking of that, and I kind of hit you right off the bat with that loaded question right off the start there. But as far as those comments you just made there, let's talk about the leader, and do you trace culture back to the leadership behavior, and what role do they play in implementing kind of your
Well, certainly it's got to start with leadership.
yeah.
Um, it's got to start there, and I think the leaders are the ones that set the vision, that really cultivate. If you have something like a mission statement or a vision statement or core values, hopefully you've incorporated that from everybody's input and not just gotten a
Yeah.
room with three people and like knock those out in 2 hours and put them out on your business cards and up on your website. But, it starts there. But then I think it's about infusing that down, and that's a lot of that's about how they connect with everybody in the company, and how they connect with that second tier leadership that's going to be the people that actually infuse and implement those ideas into the culture. So I think it starts with leadership, but I mean, this is a nonstop job as far as I can tell. This is a daily thing that you have to revisit. You can't put it on a sign or on your website or on your business card and say, "Okay, we're done with that. We're
Yep.
good now. We've transformed our culture." It's an ongoing day-to-day thing that you're constantly reinforcing. So it's a lot of work. It's hard, which is I think why so few companies actually have nailed that. There's companies I see that have glimpses of that, but there's very few that sort of maintain that throughout and don't have any hiccups in their cultural aspects and what people view from the outside.
Agreed. What are some you talk about, maybe the stated values versus lived values, and you touched on that a little bit, but what are some kind of warning signs that a leadership team, either one individual or a few of them, a leadership team is not a coachable culture, not a adaptive culture? Any
Yeah.
signs out there?
Well, first of all, I think if you see a lot of turnover in top leadership, that's a big sign.
Mhm.
If people are leaving, and then the other big sign for leaders, I think, if people are leaving, the people that report to those leaders are leaving. If those turnover rates are high, that's a pretty good indicator that that's maybe a toxic leader that's not living those values. And again, it's so complicated. It's sort of hard to pin down what's the root cause of that, or like just to say, let's evaluate this person's leadership skills. Well, they may be really great at some things, but not as great at other things. And to me, that's where that whole learning piece comes in and mastery piece comes in. And this fits right into coaching.
Mhm.
People that are curious, that challenge their assumptions, that challenge their skills, that want to always improve, they're lifelong learners. To me, if they're not good leaders now, they will become great leaders because they have that thirst for learning and being better, and just trying to be good at something. And that takes an open mind. That takes a humility in a way. And some of these leaders that are the toxic leaders, they have those big egos and they don't have that humility. I'll tell you, it's a cool story. There's a great book I highly recommend called Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind
So,
by a guy named Shunryu Suzuki. And he tells this story of this academic that's come over to learn about Zen from Shunryu Suzuki. And the guy starts with just hammering him with a bunch of questions about Zen. And he says, "Well, would you like some tea?" And the professor said, "Yeah, I'd love some tea." So he gets his tea and he pours the tea, and he keeps pouring it until the cup overflows into the saucer and then onto the table. And he goes, "Hey, the cup's full. You can stop pouring." And he said, "That's just like your mind. Your mind is full of preconceptions and ideas that you think are right. And until you empty your cup, you can't learn anything."
hmm,
So I think sometimes we have a lot of full cups, and I'm guilty of that. I think I know how things are, what things are, how people are. And if I can open my mind up and empty my cup, I'll learn all kinds of cool things about myself and about other people. But that, again, that takes humility. And sometimes my ego gets in the way of that. So it's not an easy thing to do. But to me, that's the first step toward learning and toward leadership, is to empty your cup and say, I don't know everything. And I want to learn as much as I can about everything that I can while I'm here on earth. That's the beginning to me, is that thirst for learning. And who, just again, this is a generalization, so
yeah,
forgive the generalization, but you know who the worst of this is? The worst people at like not emptying their cup? The masters, the people that are great at
yeah,
stuff, the people that are they're really knowledgeable, that have tons of experience because they just know the answer. But there's a quote from that book that says in the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the master's mind, there are few. And it's
Yeah.
so true. And those are the hardest people I have to work with, is because they think they know everything and they
Yeah.
think they're just great at everything. And guess what? They are
Yeah.
pretty damn good
Yeah. Yeah.
at
They are.
lots of stuff. But
Yeah.
but again, they're not those lifelong learners. They're letting their egos sort of get in the way of learning something new.
And agree with the ego part and not learning new stuff. They won't let the ego get out of the way, you know. But as far as the high performing executives, there's also a part two that I think exists, and maybe you can agree or disagree. But it seems like they're so laser focused on their job. It's sometimes a struggle for them to take in more feedback or to take in what the team suggests, whatever, because they're so
Mm.
focused. I wouldn't say it's ego driven. It's more of they just block people out and keep working. They're not really team players. Does that make sense? Does that?
Oh, totally. I see it a lot. And it's
Yeah.
like, here's what that's why when we do these emotional intelligence programs and we look at a bunch of people's skills like communication and relationships, and they say, I don't have time to work on that. I'm too busy. So
Yeah.
we have to say, okay, why don't we try to incorporate that learning into your day to day? Because you can work anytime you have an encounter with another human being, you can work on communication or emotional intelligence or relationships. So we have to sort of do an end run around that and say, look, don't wait till you get all your work done to work on this stuff on leadership and your personal development, because it'll always be at the bottom of the list. So it's about incorporating it into your day to day. So I see that a lot, especially now. I mean, have you checked in with people now? It's it's insanity. I mean,
It
the
is.
work is wide open. They don't
Yeah.
have enough people. They're desperately trying to hire people, and they use the mirror test. You know, if you can fog up a mirror, you're hired.
Yeah.
So you got people in positions that may
Uh,
not be the best people or have the best skills, and you
yeah.
don't have the time or the energy or the maybe the resources to train them properly. And it's just nonstop. I feel for them, and it's hard to say. Well, if you could just slow down a little bit, like if you could take a couple of hours and take this self-directed course I have on stress management, you'd be a lot better off. But they can't even find 2 hours to, or they say they can't find two
Yeah.
hours to do that. So what are you going to do? How do you approach that? I get the overwhelm, but you have to stop. You got to. It's that whole old adage about sharpening the axe. You got to stop. You got to
Yeah.
sharpen.
Yeah. The mirror test. That's a new one. I heard one recently. I was talking to a contractor and they were talking about oh, we need super, we need PMs, we need that, they need everything. And I'm like, oh yeah, what are the qualifications? And he's like, a pulse. Just a pulse.
Yeah,
That's it takes
Paul's.
a pulse.
Yeah,
Yeah, but it goes to
it,
your comment. They don't look
yeah,
at training, they don't look at qualifications, just throw someone out. That's a recipe for failure, you know. So
totally,
yeah.
totally. And again, I feel for them because they're so pressured into getting things started, getting some like footers in the ground or whatever they're building. But it's sort of like I remember a story about this Japanese company that had a year to build this building, and the first month went by and they didn't do anything out on site. And the guy said, "Hey, man, what's going on?" "Oh, we're planning." Well, second month went by, third month went by, nothing on site. They go, What are you guys doing? Where we're planning?" So then they started about 5 months in and finished a month early. Whereas the way we work in this industry is it's like the owner wants to see something, go put some footers in,
Yeah.
go, go let's mobilize, get a
I want
trailer
to see
out there.
progress.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, that's right. We got to get people out there. Like we don't have anything for them to do. We haven't
Yeah.
finalized the design, but let's get people out there. That's the mentality.
Yeah.
So we do a lot less planning, a lot more just getting stuff going. And that's the whole lean thing too. We
Yeah.
just, oh, here, go work over here for a while. There's no planning of sequencing and handoffs and who's before you and who's after you. It's just, where's there an open space, and just go throw some ductwork out. Let's act like we're getting stuff in, then we can bill for it and get some money and get paid. And you
Yeah.
know that seems to be how we just do work.
Yeah.
But again, the smart companies don't do it that way, and they do plan, and they do sequence, and they do a lot of
Agreed.
lean and proper planning like that. So there are people doing it. I just don't know why more people don't do it. But again, I have compassion for that overwhelm and that just so crazy busy that you just don't know what to do next. You just do whatever's in front of you.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so someone passed the mirror test. They have a pulse. They made it on the company payroll. What's one something small a leader could do to make a big cultural impact on this new person? What's something
Hmm.
to work them
Well,
in?
this is going to sound self-serving,
Yeah.
but it's backed by some research. FMI did they've done all these studies for years and years, and they did a study about retention and workforce development stuff. And they said one of the biggest retainers is if you have good learning and development offerings for your employees.
Yep.
Because again, that fits into that self-determination theory and mastery and wanting to learn something and be good at something and be better at something. So if you don't have some learning and development stuff in place, then get some learning and development stuff in place, or maybe even ask the new employees, hey, where do you want to go? What do you want to learn? Where do you want to be? And if you plan out their next 5 years, 10 years at that company and say, here's the skills you're going to need to get to where you want to be, and we're going to offer you ways to get those skills, either internally or externally, then why would they leave? Why would they risk leaving?
Yeah.
If their career was planned out and you knew what they wanted and you knew the skills they needed to get there and you knew the skills they needed that they feel like they don't have yet, and you offered them those skills, ways to get those skills, to me, that's just a no-brainer. Why,
Yeah.
why would you risk going somewhere else where they're going to throw you into the fire? And, but people are doing it. You know why they're doing it? Because of the money.
Yeah. The money. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. But then they get that other place and the money gets, and they're getting overwhelmed and they're not getting support and they're not feeling that culture, and the money's pretty meaningless at that point.
And it hurts the life balance, the work-life balance. It hurts everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
And again, I get that. Some people they want the money, they need the money,
Yeah.
and I get that. If you need money and you got a family and you got bills to pay and you're like in debt or whatever, and you're getting 20%, 30% more, that's hard to turn down. So I understand the reason behind it, but long term, it's a bad decision. Short term, maybe you have to make that decision. I get it.
Yeah. I really like that response about the learning culture and training, and that's awesome. So that's good stuff. But
Well,
staying
again,
here,
that it's backed
what's
by
that?
research. FMI said
Yeah.
that's one of the biggest things you can do to ensure that people don't leave is offer them training and development, because they're improving their skills for the career.
Yeah.
And here,
You're making them better.
there's a yeah, there's the guy that said, "What if I train them uh, and they leave?"
I hear
And
that.
I say, "What if you don't train them and they stay?"
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And then earlier you talked about your courses. I mean, your course. Could you touch on
Yeah.
that and explain that a little bit?
Yeah, to me, this is my legacy for the
Yeah.
industry, because I'm 67 years old, so I'm going to be bowing out in the next year, 2 years, and working a lot less. So I thought, what can I leave as a legacy for me, and how can I reach more people? Because you can't, you know, change a whole industry by doing leadership programs 30 people at a time or coaching individuals. So I thought, I'm going to put all this 25 years of stuff and put it in a self-directed course. So I've got 12 different courses on emotional intelligence, relationship skills, communication skills, uh, time management, stress management. There's one on safety. There's one on marketing. There's one on diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Really, really cool stuff. They're either industry issues or they're people stuff, personal leadership and development stuff. So I've got all this stuff up on my website, and it, it's it's just been crazy good. People just love these courses, and they're very interactive and experiential, and the learners constantly interacting with the content. So it's not when you look at online learning, most of it is really horrible. I've tried to solve all those problems, so we make it very experiential and interactive, and it's kind of fun. It's gamified. There's some gamification to it,
Awesome.
and then it's all about at the end, we have a series of quests that you go on. So once you go through the course, you go on these quests to apply what you just learned. So, for instance, if you took the relationship skills course, a quest might be go to a place where you don't know people, introduce yourself to five people, learn their names, and find out something about them.
Awesome. That's
That
cool.
would be a way to apply what you just learned.
Yeah.
So it's about the application as well.
Okay. Is it, you mentioned 12 courses. Is it kind of a la carte, kind of like
Yeah,
a,
it's a la carte. You can
okay.
just get them one at a time, or you can buy the whole library. Here's something I'm adding in the next few weeks, which is the coolest thing ever. Um, we've got an AI coach Brent.
Oh,
So if you
cool.
get stuck, or you need an accountability partner, or you want to run something by somebody, or you've done an exercise and you want to tell them about what you experienced, there's Coach Brent right there. And you type it in, and this AI bot
Uh,
will talk with you about it and have a discussion around it.
oh,
And
wow.
I asked the guys, I said, will it really be like me? And they goes, yeah. I mean, we're going to train it, and it is you. Like that's the only frame of reference it has. So they're
Yeah.
feeding in all my books, all the courses,
Yeah.
all the blogs, all the podcasts, everything that any online presence I have, they're feeding into this thing. And it supposedly will answer, and people won't be able to tell the difference if it's me or not.
Yeah. I'm actually going through that. I'm going through that right now too with we have an AI task force, and I'm kind of the guinea pig. We're creating an AI John O'Brien for KCA.
Nice.
Yes. Yeah. So if someone calls and what's the KCA about, and this AI is going to comb the internet and see any sort of Keystone contractor mentioning, any sort of mentioning an op-ed I wrote or any interview anything, and it spits out answers, and
It's so cool.
it is so
It's
cool.
so cool.
What a brave new
So
world.
yeah,
I love
that's
it.
that's coming in a couple of weeks, but
Yeah.
really, to me, the whole thing is I want to create more of a sort of a culture around this, the other thing is it's social. You have accountability partners that you can do these courses with, go through them at the same time, so that you can have discussions around how you're applying what you learn. So it's social, it's interactive, it's gamified, it's experiential. Everything's there. I'm really excited about it, and my
Yeah.
whole idea is how can I reach more people? How can I
Yeah.
affect more positive change? And how can we give people access to these things that they don't have to be in a company and have a group like a leadership group? Of course, we can do that with companies, and we can get them doing the self-directed courses, but anybody can do these. So I'm
Yeah.
excited about it.
That is cool. Do you have any sort of specialty courses or suggested courses for new hires? So if someone's onboarding a new employee and they say, Brent, I'm super busy. I'm working with them a little bit. I'm trying to find time, but can you get them kind of up
Yeah.
to speed with our culture? And is
Uh,
that
I would do the emotional intelligence ones first,
okay?
so they can take a test and get a baseline and see what things they need to work on from an emotional standpoint, on emotional competencies. But then the biggest one that everybody seems to want me to start with is communication.
Okay. Yeah.
And there's a course on killer communication skills. And then the one that's requested usually after that one is 12 steps to great relationships. And those are the big keys for especially people that are new, who don't quite know what they're doing. How do we fit into this company and culture? Well, you got to communicate well, and then you got to figure out how you relate to other people, and that's all about the relationships.
Yeah. And speaking of kind of new hires and new employees, going down that road a little bit here. How do healthy cultures handle mistakes without creating fear? Because you want people to be
Mm.
for the best, and that's a tough one there. That's
That's tough, but that gets down to the good leaders and their emotional intelligence. If they're humble, they're okay admitting mistakes. I think the ego drives covering up mistakes or trying to blame other things, other people, other parts of whatever that blame is. But really mature leaders who know themselves well. And that's the other thing that, I've found is a huge issue in this industry. And one of our courses is called Think Like a Genius, Innovation and Creativity. And one of the things that really holds that back in this industry is the fear of making a mistake. And I get that there's some mistakes that are either, life and death, safety things, or huge budget things. I'm not talking about those kinds of issues. I'm talking about just allowing people to do their work and fail and learn from those mistakes. And we are not good at that, creating that culture. It's a punitive culture for mistakes. Um, and from what I've seen anyway, of course, the good companies allow people to make mistakes, but it's that whole, Silicon Valley kind of a fail fast and learn and keep moving forward. We sure don't have that prevalent in this industry, and I wish we had more of it. And again, I'm not talking about those huge mistakes that cost you millions of dollars. I'm not talking about safety mistakes that could
yeah,
cost lives. I'm talking about that day-to-day stuff
the
where
connections.
people are so afraid to make a mistake that they're paralyzed and they won't offer anything new. And when they do make a mistake, they're called on the carpet and they're punished in a way. And so, of course, they're going to hide everything they can in the future because they don't
Yeah,
want to go through that again, right? So then
yeah.
you've created this culture of fear around innovation and making mistakes and offering ways to do things better. So
Which hurts
um,
production, hurts trust, hurts you name it.
everything.
Yeah,
It's just a I call it the downward spiral to hell.
yeah,
It's awful. Every you can watch it happening. Everybody just starts shutting down. Nobody wants to risk anything. They won't speak up. They won't tell you what's wrong. They won't offer say, hey, I've got this. Here's an example, a real simple example. This is probably 15 years ago, but they came out with this software. It was an app called, what was it called at the time? Anyway, it did daily reports.
okay.
And so a superintendent could walk around, take pictures, speak into their phone, and then it would create a PDF, and that would be your daily report instead of filling it all out by hand, which they were doing 10, 15 years ago. And I told this company about it. It was a group of superintendents I was working with. It was called Note Vault. That's what it was called. And
Okay.
somebody bought Note Vault and changed it to something else. But anyway, I said, there's an app now. All you got to do is take pictures and speak into your phone, and it creates a whole daily report in a PDF and emails it to
Yep.
whoever you want to email it to. You know what they said?
Uh,
That can't be true. I said, well, why don't you try it? No, because, we know our daily reports, we know how to write them.
Yep. Yeah.
I said, how long does it take you to write a daily report every day? Oh, about 15, 20 minutes. I said, multiply that times a year. How
Yeah.
much time are you wasting doing that where you could do it as you're walking around the project? They wouldn't embrace that new thing.
Yeah.
It's like,
Exactly.
wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
But boy, we have that mentality out there as well. We've always done it that way.
We've all.
Why
Yep.
should we do
Exactly.
it differently?
Yeah. That's a hard one to break for many. So that's
Sometimes, yeah,
yeah, it is.
absolutely.
So a company owner rightfully sees they're maybe going in the wrong direction for whatever reason. It could be toxic person on staff. It could be a bad project that just stressed
Mm.
them out. Whatever happened, they want to change the culture of their company. What are some of the mistakes or big mistakes company owners make when they say we got to change the culture? This is what we're going to do, and
Yeah, I think they make assumptions about what needs to be changed and just change them. I think the first thing I would do is get everybody in a room or maybe even do some surveys. But you got to be careful with surveys because surveys set expectations, and you have to make some changes, or people just get more pissed off about
Yeah.
everything. But do some surveys, have some discussions, have some sort of change makers, get people in rooms and do some focus groups and say, guys, what do you want to fix? What do you see as the problem? Where are you experiencing things that you don't like in our company? And then you have to get that all that data, all that feedback, and create policy, create models that people are using, create maybe part of it is even just technology and process stuff. You know, if you got crappy processes in place and people are frustrated by those processes, then change the processes instead of blaming the people that why it's not working. So it may be a process thing, it may be a culture thing. If people are being disrespected, and and the other thing you got to do is you got to be prepared to make some pretty big changes. Like you may have to fire some of your best people because some of those high performers, best people, ego-driven people, maybe sometimes they're your toxic people, and you've
Yeah.
got to be willing to let them go. And if you're not willing to let them go and you make excuses for them and they stay, then other people will be leaving.
Hmm.
So you have to get the data, ask the people, what do we need? What are you struggling with? And then start systematically fixing those things. And for the people things, it's about them being listened to, understood, and then they see changes that address what they're concerned about.
Nice. Comes down to communication and connection again. So-
Yes, totally.
Absolutely.
It's a
Yeah.
foundation for everything,
Yeah.
everything that we do. And then, and again, we get so busy and we get so wrapped up in what we're doing day to day and the process of delivering a project that those things kind of fall by the wayside or they atrophy a little bit. So it's about really keeping them front of mind, revisiting them often, talking to people. How are you doing? Do you have everything? I think Gallup has those 12 questions. Do you have a best friend at
Yeah.
work? Do you have everything you need to do to be successful in your job? Do you have somebody that's encouraging you every day? Do you have somebody that's giving you feedback? And if those things aren't happening, you're going to have some cultural reckoning days coming up,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. In your opinion, what's one daily habit leaders can adopt immediately to improve company culture?
Hmm. This is going to sound a little weird, maybe, but I would say daily reflection time. That works for individuals and that works for companies too, and even for like that reflection time, that start time of a daily huddle.
Hmm.
Or, so you're not just jumping right into work, you're kind of assessing what's going on today. How are we doing today? And we do a check-in we do when I do work with groups, especially field groups. It's called 1 to 10. And we say, how are you doing right now? 1 to 10. Like 1 is I'm eating crap food, not sleeping well, highly stressed, not connecting with family and friends. I'm a mess. That's a 1. 10 is, man, I'm feeling great, looking great, eating well, exercising regularly. Yeah, I'm just going on all cylinders. And they'll
Nice.
say, okay, most people fall into like 5 to 7 range about, you know. So we'll say, okay, the next question is, what one thing could you do in the coming week to get that number higher? And for some people, it may be I'm going to eat better. I'm going to just do less fast food, processed food, or I'm going to get my sleep every night, or
Yep.
I'm going to hit the gym a couple of times this week, whatever it is for that individual. But here's the cool thing that happens. If you get a 9 or a 10, you say, well, how the hell do you do that? You got
Yeah.
to let them tell you, like, how does that work?
Yeah.
And sometimes they'll say, well, I just got back from vacation. So, that's why I'm a
Yeah.
9. But then also you'll get 2s and 3s. And here's the cool thing that happens. People will step forward and say, "Oh man, what's going on?" They'll ask more questions and they'll say, "How can I support you this week? How can I help you since you're struggling?" So it creates this synergy where people are helping each other and they're understanding where they're coming from. So that daily sort of check-in. And as
Mhm.
an individual, like I have my morning routine. I do a morning devotional. I do some puzzles from New York Times. I do some prayer and meditation. Those are the kind of things that I start my morning with. Now, I don't do it every day. I try to do it every day, but I probably average maybe 3 or 4 times a week. That's plenty. But to me, that checking in of where I am, what am I grateful for? What can I be better at? How can I be a better husband, a father, whatever those things are that you're trying to be better at, and just reflect on those things. It doesn't have to be long. It can be 10 minutes, 20 minutes.
Yep.
But to me, that's the beginning of that self-awareness that leads to improvement and behavioral change in the long run. You gotta really check in with where you are now if you want to see where you want to be.
Yeah. I like the daily reflection. It's internally, like you said, and it's also external with the team, So it's
Yeah.
come back to teamwork. I love it. I love it. This is funny. This is funny too. So my first job out of college, um, I had a boss that was a little demanding, a little, we could say pain in the ass, So and he'd always say,
Yeah.
I want you to write down, he wouldn't check, but he'd say, I want you to write down what you did today and what did you think about your tasks or whatever and blah, blah, blah. And he'd say, did you do it? Did you do it? And it was kind of a pain.
Right.
And now fast forward to 30 years later, I guess it is, or whatever. I'm like you, I don't do it every day, but I try 3 to 4 times a week. I do a daily journal. Just I do 3 things I liked about the day, 2 things I
Right.
learned, and 1 thing I want to improve tomorrow. So here I am. I
Oh,
was bitching
cool.
about it 30 years ago, and now I'm doing it. So wise
There you
bosses do
go.
what they're talking about. You gotta
Yeah.
listen to me. uh,
Well,
this
sometimes
class,
it's a
yeah,
timing thing. It's like,
yeah,
well, you started doing it when you needed to do it. And
yeah,
I try to be cognizant of that when I'm coaching people and say they're just not ready for this yet. That's okay.
yeah.
I'm not,
That's a
you're not
good,
going to
different
force
stage.
them into doing stuff. Just let them. I always tell people wherever you are, that's where you need to be.
Yep.
Just it's a process that never ends, self-development. So just be okay with where you are now. Do the things that you want to do now to improve, and the rest will take care of itself down the road somewhere.
You actually just answered my final question here. I was gonna say, I was gonna, say, what's one thing that you hope listeners take away from our discussion today? And you just kind of
Mm.
just nailed it right there. People might
Yeah, I
not
think
be ready for it. Yeah.
that's as good as any. Just start.
Yeah.
Like I've had people in these programs, and they get so jacked up. We're doing mental, physical, emotional performance, and they're probably 50 pounds overweight, and they say, "Oh, I'm going to do an Ironman,"
Yeah.
and I'll say, "Hey, man, why don't you just start walking every day? Let's start there.
Yeah.
That's doable, easy. You got one decision to make: turn right or left when you go out of your door.
Yeah.
And if you work up to an Ironman, awesome. But don't set yourself up to fail. Just start simply. Start with one thing. Maybe that's I'm gonna only have one Coke a day, or
Yeah.
I'm gonna only do fast food twice a week instead of 4 times a week. Simple things like that that are done consistently are much better for you in the long run and lead to much better changes physically, emotionally, mentally than
Right.
anything you could try to do. Like, I'm going to start at the gym, and we do that, New Year's resolution thing, and I'm going 5 days a week. And then by February, you're not going at all.
Yep.
So you get this spurt and then nothing for months. You're much better off saying, why don't I just walk for 20 minutes a day? I can probably do
Yeah.
that 3 or 4 times a week. It's a great place to start, you
Yeah.
know.
That's one thing I've learned over the years. I'm now 50, and I would say in my, I don't know, probably 30s, I was in really good shape in my 20s. 30s started dropping out of shape a little bit in 40s, and then like a couple times a year, I get gung ho, I get fired up, I'm running,
Right.
I'm doing this, doing that, and then next thing you know, I'm out of commission for like a week.
Yeah,
And my wife just laughs. She goes, you got to work up to that. You can't go out and run 5 miles.
that's right. And see, that's I've developed, like, I've been doing yoga and meditation and all that mindfulness stuff since like 1977.
Awesome. Yeah.
So I'm coming up on a long time doing
Yeah.
those things. And turns out it's really good because now that I'm 67, it's a perfect exercise for me. I do a lot of walking. I do work out at the gym and have a trainer and do weights and all that stuff. But the yoga, that's my mainstay. That
Awesome.
I do that so consistently over the last 50 years, you know. Um, and so I would say if you're struggling with that, find something you like, you know,
Yeah.
find an exercise that you like. And also the other key to the exercise consistently is accountability partner.
Yeah.
Find somebody that will do it with you. Maybe a spouse that can, you guys can walk in the mornings. And my wife and I walk our dog every morning and every afternoon. That's when I'm home, that's what I do. So having that accountability and then having something that you enjoy. And we love walking and talking with each other. And sometimes we'll listen to something with our earbuds, a book or music or
Yeah.
something. That's fine too. But we do it together. Uh, so accountability, find something you like to do, because if you don't really like it, you're not going to do it for
Yep.
any length of time. So
Accountability and comes back to human connection again. Communication and
it
connection. That's what it's
does.
all about.
It does.
I love
It's
it.
so true, though. I mean, I know that that's sort of cliche, but it's
Yeah.
so true. And that's where I'm going these days. I'm everything I am. You know, I'm doing this pre-conference session at the Mental Health and Wellbeing Summit on human connection, but everything I do now, the undertone, the underlying theme is all about connecting as humans.
Yep.
So it's important.
Agreed. Agreed. Well, I really enjoyed this discussion. This is awesome. I'm going to get some links out to your trainings and your website and get your name out there to my little audience, my little world, you know. So this is awesome. I really enjoyed
Great,
it.
John. Thank you.
Hope to do it
I
again.
did too. It was my pleasure.
You bet. Until next time, everyone, stay humble, stay hungry, and stay coachable. Take care. Thanks, Brent.
Thank you.